everybody, and welcome to the birthday segment of the New Orleans Angels Adventure. Okay, so this week would not have been made possible if it were not for a very, very special person that I met at the Andrew Jackson Hotel. He was the first person I met there, works the front desk. He's going to tell you a little bit about himself. This guy is super special. In fact, we're going to be going out tonight and we're going to go have a bit of fun and it's going to be awesome. But you know what? Enough of that. I am going to turn this over to my new friend, Steve Foley. Everybody, this is the guy you have to thank for all the posts, all the videos, all the people, all the connections. If it wasn't for Steve, I don't think my trip would have been as awesome it is. Thank you, Steve.
No problem.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you. Like, you're so connected in this community on so many levels. How the hell did you become you? Like, really?
I don't know. I'm still trying to find myself. Well, I started coming here in 2011, 2012 through a college trip. We were doing a documentary here working with the Mardi Gras Indians. Sorry, didn't mean to kick you there. And so initially my trip was to come to Bourbon Street and get drunk. I mean, what person doesn't want to do that? And
especially in college,
right?
Like,
exactly.
really?
And it was paid for, so why not?
Yeah.
Make college pay for your trips, guys. So when I got here, I realized how amazing the city was, and it really just captivated me so much that every trip that we took for 4 years making this documentary, I never wanted to leave. So eventually, when I did graduate, I decided, you know what, I'm moving. So I found a place, moved here like 7 weeks after graduation.
Wow.
And I had already built a couple friendships here, but sadly, most of them had left by the time I finally moved, because I kept promising I'm moving.
Yeah. Like we all do when we're young,
exactly,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
So, but I was wholeheartedly, I knew this was going to happen for me. And so, you know, I put it out there and I made it happen. But when I got here, the first place that really kind of made me feel connected to the city and welcome and like I was a part of a family was the vampire community, specifically the people at Boutique du Vampire, who have now like spun this entire vampire empire here in New Orleans.
Wow.
Which you've found out,
yes.
That entire block is kind of all vampire now.
Yeah.
And it's such a great thing. But they really kind of took me in and were like, you know what, like, you're a good person, you're family, blah, blah, blah. And through them, I kind of built my community here. And then, you know, coming out into the local gay community, I started befriending people, bartenders mostly, which are mostly everybody in the city. Everybody's a bartender here. So I really kind of found myself through that. And
the vampire culture is very, very heavy here. Like, one of the things that we've talked about and some others have talked about is the biggest communities here are, I believe, the witches, the voodoo, and the vampire.
Yes.
Right? So the originals got it right.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And they did film here.
Yes.
So anything on the exterior was filmed here anyways.
Yeah.
So the vampire community is real here. There are the sanguinarians, which are the traditional blood drinkers. And then there are the emotional vampires, psychic vampires, energy vampires, whatever, you know, term we want to go with that day, who feed more on people's energies. And they do really good work in the community. And some of them even go to Jackson Square, and on Thanksgiving they will actually feed the homeless.
Nice.
And feed off of the homeless.
Right.
And so it's a way of giving back to the community without harming.
Right.
So it's a really neat kind of venue and community here. We also have Maven, who is our master fangsmith in the city. He actually custom makes fangs. I like to call him, I call him Vampire Daddy, but he is also like a vampire dentist, and what I also call him, I guess. But he does make custom fangs, and so he can make them, they're snap-on, so you can drink with them. You can't eat with them because they will snap. But he molds them to the size of your teeth and to the shape of your mouth.
So kind of like veneers. Yes,
exactly.
like veneers
So,
or caps.
Yeah, and he makes them to the shade of your teeth.
Wow.
And to the shape of your mouth. So when you put them in, you're not having this weird like lisp sounding like, I don't know, Nicolas Cage in that really bad vampire movie. But they're really cool and unique, and he makes many different types. And you can book him individually. He has a website you can go to.
Wow! So
yeah,
he's like very, very open
yes,
about what he
yes.
does.
And he was trained through somebody, and I can't recall who, but he also is a very famous DJ too. So he's very well known.
He's eclectic and very diverse.
Yes.
So now, there are a lot of places here that are of the vampire culture. Which ones would you recommend?
So in the vampire community, they're all owned by one person, which is great. It's all owned by Marita Crandall. She's an amazing person, and she started the Boutique du Vampire back about 19, 20 years ago at this point, maybe a little more. I started to lose track. But she started this community and this little shop, and it's just grown now. So initially it was the shop, and then she opened up Potions, which is a vampire speakeasy. So if you are of quality character, and they deem you worthy, they will give you the password to enter the vampire speakeasy.
I was invited yesterday, and I had the privilege and honor of going to this place. It was phenomenal. It was amazing.
It's very beautiful. What she does up there, she literally is a boss lady.
Yeah.
Her concept, she follows it down to the detail, as you know, like even the signs in the bathroom, which are hilarious.
Yeah.
But, it's great.
It's amazing.
But the boutique Potions, they opened the Vampire Cafe 2 years ago. I worked there briefly, but I was more drawn to the shop and Potions back when I bartended there. And the food at the Vampire Cafe is just spectacular.
I keep going back.
Yes.
I
and
really,
you
really
had
love
the fried deviled eggs that
I
told you
did.
about, so
I did.
delicious.
Again, a winner. So now, how did you get connected to like people like Brick and Sam and that kind of stuff outside the culture?
Yeah. So growing up in Ohio, like that's stuff like the occult is definitely looked down upon. It's not quite the Bible Belt, but it's on the end of it.
Yeah.
And so coming here where it's embracing of people in that community and that culture. And so we have Hex, which is at that point was the only authentic witchcraft shop in the city.
Sorry.
And I used to work there with Charlie, who now is at Hands of Fate.
Yeah. And Ellie.
Who
everybody knows Ellie.
Ellie is phenomenal. She is one of my favorite people. Just
we
so
all love
sweet
her.
and genuine, and one of the best readers I know.
Yeah.
If not the best reader.
Yeah, and we had a taste of that the other day. She's just amazing. So we all love her.
Great. So going to Hex, I put in an application one day. They hired me. I worked there for quite a few months, and then went separate ways. But Brian and Christian, they own it. Great people. And then a couple years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they opened up Omen, which is their sister shop right next door.
It's all Egyptian based, yeah?
Yes, and they own Hex in Salem, Massachusetts as well, which is the main shops that originated the ones here in the sister stores of New Orleans.
Okay, so guys, if you have questions for Steve about anything he said, whether it's the vampire culture, maybe you've been curious about it, or the craft in New Orleans, or the culture in New Orleans, now is your time to ask, because he is so informative. And as I'm going to take those questions, tell us a little bit about the Vampire Librarian. Who is this?
Sure. So that started through the Vampire Boutique early COVID. And so one of the things Marita wanted to do was she wanted to connect with her customers that were locked up in their house during COVID, like most people. And so one of those things was the books. Like when somebody would buy a book, she wouldn't know, what do these people think about it? What do they appreciate?
Yeah.
Do they want more of this book or this type, you know? And also, what about the authors? What are the authors doing of these books during COVID?
And these are very specifically vampire books at this point?
All
or they are?
books.
Yeah.
And so the authors during that time, you know, they couldn't travel. But they couldn't do any traveling and autograph signings and conventions, stuff that they normally would do to promote their books. And so starting this book club was a way to help both sides.
Yes.
To help the authors increase book sales, to get a deeper connection with their readers, but also for the shop to get their the customers that are buying the books to get more invested into it. And so the unique thing with the book club, the Vampire Library Book Club, is that the authors in the club with us, and the books were autographed by the authors at no extra charge. So this was a really unique thing, and at the end of the month, we would do a live interview with them. So the first 30 minutes, I would ask them the questions, and then the last 30 minutes, it would be open to the book club members to ask any questions that they want. So it was
and one of those people they were interviewing was actually Sam, wasn't it? With his book, that Sam Bowling, we actually interviewed yesterday, was one of those people, one of those authors that you had the opportunity to interview.
So we didn't get to interview him specifically, but he did give me one of his books, which is about the ghosts, which didn't really connect well with the vampire community. But it same in the occult kind of environment. But we did work with many of the famous authors, Charlene Harris, Christopher Golden, Chloe Neal, Elise Arden, who's the local author here, Dracul, which is written by Bram Stoker's great-grandnephew. So it's the prequel to Dracula.
Yep.
Just amazing, really talented authors in the field. They're not some gimmicky book. It's something of quality vampire literature. And it was such a great experience.
And what's the page? What is the account, your handle on Instagram?
So it's the Vampire Librarian, and it's Vampire with an I now. So unfortunately, I left the vampire businesses to go my own way, to do some more projects, mostly to start my own vampire tour company, which I am doing still.
Oh, get out, really?
Yeah, so
that's
you
cool.
guys can book tours with me anytime you come to the city.
And is it through that account as well?
Yeah, you can book it through there.
Okay, so again, what is the account handle? Guys, you got to go check it out. Go follow him. And you got to see all the recommendations he has there. I swear to God, I'm sitting there going, okay, I got to read this book. I got to read this book. I got to read this book.
Yeah, it's called Vampire Librarian, Vampire with an I.
Okay.
And you could go on there. And so I've been trying to post a book every day, which I've gotten a little away from that with my work schedule. And I'll post the image of the book and then the synopsis on the back. That way it gives you an idea of what the book is about. And if I've read the book and what I thought about it as well.
So what the tours look like?
So the tours are kind of custom made based on the individual. So I can do I've been trained through the Friends of the Cabildo, so I can do any tour in the city. So I can do architecture, I can do cultural tours, jazz tours, the spooky stuff, ghosts, witches, vampires, cemetery tours. I can do all of that.
Wow.
But I of course specialize more in the vampire tours because that's what I'm into and that's what I'm more passionate and energetic about. But if you want to do other tours, I can do that too, or combine them. So I'm flexible.
So is the vampire culture more prevalent here than anywhere else? Like, do you see that this culture is in other states, in other places, or is it very, very much centered in New Orleans?
So, from what I understand, the New Orleans community used to be the highest vampire community in the U.S. And the reason being is the Ursuline Convent, which is where the rumor of the very first vampires in North America came from. You can Google the Cascade Girls legend, and that will tell you the kind of vampires history of the very first vampires in New Orleans. And so because of many things from Hurricane Katrina, a lot of individuals were displaced and kind of spread out through the country. From what I understand, Austin, Texas is actually the highest area of vampire community in the U.S.
Austin, Texas?
Yeah. So
wow, I wouldn't have thought
there's
that.
a sister shop, and not owned by Marita, but a sister vampire shop called the Glass Coffin in Austin. And that is owned, I just slipped on his name, but he owns the Glass Coffin, another vampire boutique, and he just opened a vampire bistro. So I don't know if it's right next door or not, but Google Austin, Texas and vampires, and I'm sure it'll pop up.
So when we talk about vampirism, we're not talking about Bram Stoker's fictional idea of what a vampire is. What is a vampire? Like, we talked about the whole thing of the empath and the ritual and that kind of stuff. These are people who believe what? What is the attitude? Like, what makes someone want to be a part of that culture? Like, what is that?
I think it really depends on the individual that identifies as being either a sanguinarian, the traditional blood-drinking vampires, or that identifies as the emotional psychic energy vampire. And I think it's more of the pull to the dark side that, you know, we all have that in us, and how do we gauge what that really means to us, and how can we build that community together
and into something positive.
Yes. And there are some individuals out there. There is a documentary that is a bit misleading, in my opinion. This is, again, just my opinion, with a community based in Metairie, and they claim to be blood drinkers and vampires. In my opinion, they're just a bunch of drug addicts. And unfortunately, that's something prevalent in the entire nation and sometimes globally. But from what most people in the vampire community believe and follow, we don't
associate.
We don't
with
recognize these people as part of the community.
So I have a question. When we talk about psychic vampires, or when I hear that term, it's always a negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I've learned this week is that when we talk about vampires and psychic ability, or emotional psychic vampire, what does that mean? Like, what is that? They may feed off another, but in a way that's still giving back. Like, how does that work?
So I think that can go two ways, like you were saying. I believe that it can be negative. People can, you know, we've all been around individuals who drain us, and we know that they are. I believe that there's also the flip side, like myself, who I feed off of everybody's energy, but I try to feed off of more of the positivity and to surround myself with good people. So I believe that if you're consuming the good energy, that too makes you good.
And therefore you're putting that good energy out there for others to consume.
And so it's kind of a reciprocal thing.
And you're doing it consciously. That's the difference.
Exactly.
Okay. And so got it.
And so I believe that I like to call them like vegetarian vampires, because you're not consuming the blood.
Yeah.
It's the emotions. And so if you're doing this emotionally, you're not taking from them something that sustains their life. You're taking something that you can take away that would not harm them, but you can get back into the community and make it better.
Yeah.
So I believe more of that emotional psychic energy vampire being a positive thing. I try to stay away from the negative aspect of it.
And that's a fair statement. So would you be able to recognize somebody in the culture, or could they be like an everyday person? Like, this is the thing in witchcraft too, right?
Yeah.
With witches, you never know. It could be your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
And you would never understand that. I mean, I had a boss once, and she pulled me into her office because she saw something in me. And she sat down and she opened her wallet and she goes, "Look at this." And it was the Wiccan Reed.
Okay.
And I went, "Oh, okay, now I get it," because there's an all-female company and the whole idea. But unless she had told me, I never would have put two and two together because I was so young. So is it the same with this particular culture?
Yeah, I think that's like, vampires aren't going around wearing a "Hello, my name is, I'm a vampire" tag, you know. I think especially with the way that society is now, everybody is so open and on social media and advertising all of this information about themselves, that in a modern day society, a vampire would not be doing that. Yeah. That's like putting a target on their back. Yeah,
I was going to say, and so, I think autonomy is part of the culture. Not autonomy, sorry, anonymity is part of the culture as well.
And so depending on who the individual is, they could be anonymous or solitary, or would like to be a part of a community. Right. And I think that's again dependent on that person and their background. There are people here that I know in the community, so I would recognize them, but everybody else would just look at them as like, they're just a little weird. Yeah. But they wouldn't register it.
Well, even me as a psychic, like if you walk into my house, you would never say, "Oh, she's a psychic," right? Yeah. Because Carl is IT. He works at a bank, and if a banker comes over for dinner, the last thing they want to see is a besom in the corner. They wouldn't even understand. But if you go into my office, that's a whole different world. And all of my viewers have seen what my office looks like with my plants and my cabinets and my stuff. Yeah. So I think I understand that too. Is also the idea that it's ours. Yeah. Right. It doesn't have to belong to everybody else.
And and so I think that's a community and a self-preservation thing. They want to keep that to ourselves and retain that kind of culture, and because if you just give it out to everybody, it's no longer special and it's no longer yours, and you want that.
Yeah. So if there was one thing you would want viewers to know, because this is such a new thing for so many people, what would it be that you would like them to know or understand or take away from this interview regarding this beautiful culture?
Vampires don't glitter.
Oh, I love
Sorry.
that.
Twilight is not a thing. No, I'm just kidding. So I think, I don't know. That's a tough question. I think there's a lot of misperceptions, I think, and that, vampires, like any living being, have, which are, I guess undead beings, are unique, and we all have our different things that make up who we are. So, not to. I don't know what I'm saying here. It's just a tough question.
It's okay. Take your time.
Just to be able to understand that things and people may be a little different than you are, and that doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them scary. Sometimes it may make them intimidating, but that's something that I think we all need to embrace. Like, we're all different, and we can all get along together if we give each other the space and the respect and appreciation.
And I think that that's what this week has been about for me, is really tying all the different cultures together, understanding the witch culture, understanding the psychic culture, understanding the voodoo culture, understanding the vampire culture, all on different levels, to a deeper level too, right? Because this is my work. My work is to educate. And whether you agree with it or not, that's yours to sit with, right? Yeah. Whether you watch this video or any of the other videos we've done this week and say, oh, I don't buy into that, or I buy into that, or that doesn't resonate with me, all of that is to be respected, right? And sometimes it can be scary and intimidating because we don't understand it, but that's a good place to be. Yeah. So everybody who's watching out there, please understand something. If you're feeling intimidated by this video or any of the videos you've seen today, that's a good thing. Congratulations. It means you're getting out of your comfort zone. And that's exactly what Angel's Adventures in New Orleans has been all about. So now I am going to go and have a drink. Look at this. This has been my day. Some very lovely woman actually gave me $40. So it's like, what? Like, people here are too generous. So I think Steve and I are now probably going to go down to Bourbon Street, and we're going to go and have a little bit of fun and enjoy. And I will see you guys at the airport tomorrow. Yeah, the week has just flown by, and we will see you then, and we'll probably do some readings, and we'll have a fantastic time getting home together. You guys have been absolutely phenomenal travel buddies, and just remember, it's not over yet, so stay tuned tomorrow, and you have your bags all packed, and don't forget anything at the hotel, okay? Don't forget anything. All right. Night, people.